Hey there, I'm Annalise, host of What's Trending Now on rBeatz.com, bringing you this week's DJ World Beats hottest trending bangers on rBeatz Radio and Media Streaming Network. Let's get right into it. Starting with upcoming events in the Charlotte area. Up first, we have Grindhouse Studios with their open house event on Saturday, May 4th at 11 a.m. Second, we have Creative Mornings with Matt Olin on Friday, May 3rd from 8:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. at the East Charlotte Room at the Beauplex. Last but certainly not least is the Love and Life Music Fest from May 3rd to May 5th at the First Ward Park with special performances from Stevie Nicks, Post Malone, and Charlotte's very own Natalie Carr. Shifting gears, here's what's trending now on We Global Radio. DJ World Beats brings you number 1, Lynn Bryn with her song I Made You. Number 2, we have Mayday, Acting Grown. Number 3, we have Connor Price and Havaya Mighty with Trendsetter. Up next, 4 of the latest from Ricky, Oyakapa, Cinema, Rich Babe, Agaba featuring Borsetta Stivali. And now, for our We Global Radio Pop Stream 25/8 366 Global Radio, we have Grant Notch with Intrusive Thoughts. That concludes this week's countdown. Be sure to check back for what's trending on the local, national, and international music scene with DJ World Beats' hottest trending bangers dropping on rBeatz Radio.
Hello and welcome to rBeatz.com. I'm Terry Hudson, and we're here today focusing on Charlotte, North Carolina. And Charlotte's always been known as kind of a banking capital. It still is, but it's also becoming known as an emerging music city. And if you are a music performer, if you are a music fan, you need to stay tuned in today. My guest in the studio is a true visionary, and he is the Chief Marketing Officer for the Charlotte Center City Partners. He also heads up the Music Everywhere CLT, which is a nonprofit that works to develop Charlotte's music scene and also Charlotte's music economy. And this includes Carolina's premier music conference, Confluence. And if you haven't attended, it's coming up again this year in October. We'll be talking more about that. So let's talk about it. Here in my studio is Rick Thurmond. Welcome, Rick.
Thanks, Terry. Thanks for having me.
So, I know how brilliant of a guy you are because I've been around you, and I know what a music fan you are, but I want our viewers and our listeners to know more about you. So tell us a little bit about your background, how you even, I would say let's start where you got started.
Yeah, sure. So first of all, I don't play an instrument. I can't sing a note, and I've never written a song. So I am a lifelong consumer of music, but that means the music has meant a lot to me throughout my life. And like I tell people that some of the best nights of my life have been spent inside music venues, seeing shows, that sort of thing. But how I've incorporated that into my life. So I grew up in Florida, moved up here to North Carolina to go to college, and then stuck around. Charlotte for me was the perfect kind of city. It was not too big, not too small, but growing fast. So a place where I could see myself being a part of the city and making an impact on the city over time. So I actually spent the first 20 years of my career in local media. So I helped relaunch our city magazine, Charlotte Magazine, general interest magazine covering all things Charlotte, and then ended up doing all the jobs at Charlotte Magazine. And for the longest portion of that time, I was the editor of the magazine, all on the content side, and then spent some time running the business as well.
Well, what better way to get acquainted with a city than to run the magazine that's all about the city? Because then you learn, what the lifestyle scene looks like here, and music scene, corporate scene, everything, right from just doing that. So that's a great intro into it.
Well, I felt like I had a seat on the front row watching the city grow up over time and grow, and had the responsibility we had of telling the story of the city, month by month, year over year. And throughout that time, we made music one of the hallmarks of our coverage. And it wasn't just, hey, check out this artist or go see this band. But we felt like music meant something, that music is a way a city expresses itself. So we tried to tell the stories. Here is the story of this artist, who they are, why they do what they do, why they matter. Here's the story of a venue. We did a music issue every couple years, and we put the Avett Brothers on the cover, and I think 2006, the first magazine to do so. So we always made it a big part of our coverage. And I think I always knew in some ways I was trying to grow the music scene because I knew what it could mean for a city.
And that's a key thing you're talking about is story. And this is one of the things that we've always talked to artists about is it's not just about your music, it's about your story. If you look at, even from the older days till now, it's been whether they signed you or, whether you got booked in a certain place, it was about your story. And I've had, artists on various shows, and I always tell people it's good when you get up there and perform, but it's more important that when you come back and sit in the chair, you have something to say to the host, that you have something that's very interesting that's going to pull people in. That's another great reason, why you had a cool intro into it.
Well, that's just how we as humans connect through stories.
Absolutely.
That's how we connect with our kids when they're growing up. It's how we learn. It's how we connect with each other. And 100%, that's how we connect the most with our artists. That the more timeless artists tell stories through their songs that you see yourself in one way or another.
Right.
And then the artists themselves, you learn their story and you understand it's not just a voice coming from your speakers, but a human with a story as well. That's how we connect.
See, and you're talking about being a music fan as opposed to a musician, but the insight that you have, from that is the perfect setup to be able to understand what a city needs, from artists, and how the community itself needs to, you use the word a lot, but connect. Such a big issue right there. Not competition, but collaboration, social capital, connection. And that's how you build a community. And that's, how this has formed. But I think it's so important that you came from, you downplayed it a minute ago because you're like, well, I'm not a singer. I'm not I didn't play an instrument. But you were a true music fan. You understood it. You understood what people want from that, what they get from the artist, how it impacts their life, how music is the soundtrack of life. And you've been able to use that pretty well. It's given you a great understanding.
Yeah, and it was funny you said that because early on when we were pulling people together to sort of launch this movement, if you will, I would say the same thing to venue owners and others. And finally, Joe Kuhlman, owner of the Evening Muse, stopped me and said, Rick, if we could just clone you, we wouldn't have any issues because you're why a scene exists, because you come to the shows, you stream the music, you buy the records, you buy the T-shirts, you tell other people about it. That's what we need. That's what it's all about. But I think what I can also bring to the table is I understand cities. I understand how they work, what they need. And so being able to connect the two is pretty powerful because what we're trying to do is more than just, hey, go support the arts. Hey, go see a show. That's important. That's really important, but it has to go deeper than that if you really want to have a lasting, sustained impact.
Absolutely. So let's roll into Charlotte Center City Partners.
It's a mouthful.
I usually just say Center City Partners, but Charlotte's pretty important in that. So Charlotte Center City Partners. Tell us, I could do a 2-hour show just on the things they do because they do so much, but let's hear from you as far as, some of the important things that they do.
Yeah, sure.
Because it's a lot.
It is a lot. And I could probably spend 2 hours trying to explain it and people still might not fully grasp it. But at its heart, so we're a nonprofit and we're missioned with the vibrancy of our urban core. So that's essentially our downtown, which in Charlotte we call Uptown, as well as South End, which is a booming district just to the south of Uptown. And we do that through a variety of ways. We do it through marketing, through event production, also economic development, research, advocacy, and I'm probably leaving out a couple things. So it's sort of a full service approach to growing vibrancy in the downtown area.
Yeah, and there are some things that when it comes to music, I think a lot of new artists, even in past times, don't realize they're important things. Like when you grow up being an artist, just years ago, you thought that Billboard magazine was the #1 magazine for music, when really, to sell music, the #1 magazine was the Target Circular.
Right,
especially
that's where people bought their CDs.
Right. And so looking at avenues like that, one of the things that I think more artists should apply for and try to get in is the Novant, Thanksgiving Day Parade. And isn't that something that you guys put on as well or are involved in?
Yeah, we produce the Thanksgiving Eve Parade, and we always feature at least a half a dozen local artists on that parade. Just like when you watch the Macy's parade, right?
Right.
There's a performer that does one of their songs on the TV production. Is a televised
So they're
parade.
on TV and they're in front of those thousands of people. I go to it every year, just thousands of people lying down the street.
Absolutely. And it stops at the end. You perform the song from the float. It's a really cool experience. It really is. And so, for example, we've given a platform to Renee Rapp. So Renee Rapp is a recording artist from Charlotte. She is blowing up right now. She was on a float in the parade maybe 3 years ago.
Yeah. No, I've had artists on there, and I've gone to see the artist every year. It's always such a great show, and it's such a spectacle behind you. It makes you look even bigger, than you are. So it's great for people to see in that platform. Plus, everybody takes all the pictures for social media, so your faces are blasted, all over everything after that. And with other events you do, there's one in particular that just happened. We'll talk about that one a little bit later because you just had it about, I guess it's been a couple weeks now, but it was days long. It was such a great event. But what other events in addition to that do you do?
Well, those two are absolutely the biggest. We do some street festivals in South End. We also do the New Year's Eve celebration in Uptown.
Okay. I wasn't aware you did that. Yeah. I'm at that every year too.
So we have a local artist usually play at that. More of a party band, I would say. And smaller events as well. We have a venue called Victoria Yards, which is a
such a great place.
Parking lot. But it's a gorgeous art-filled spot, and we'll put artists on stage there as well.
Especially with the way you guys upgraded. I mean, I went to it kind of in the beginning, and then I went to it a few weeks ago for Charlotte's creative event, and it was like it was transformed, that quickly, and it was pretty amazing.
And we're not done yet.
Wow.
It will be. Because the artist that did that is an internationally known artist. It will be one of those things that people travel to Charlotte just to go see because people appreciate her work so much. Morag Myerscough is her name.
Okay. Yeah. And again, I mean, people go to other cities for concerts, for the arts, for the museums. And so the way our city is developed in that, I mean, there's so many great spaces for, photos or just to go hang out when you've never been, to the city, and more people are noticing that, and it's definitely put us on the map. Let's talk about Music Everywhere. Is that a part of Charlotte Central City Partners? And how does that correlate?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we launched it as an initiative 4 or 5 years ago with the idea that, hey, what if Charlotte could become more of a music city than it is? And if so, what if we got intentional about that? Now, the initiative is for the whole city. It's not just for Uptown. We have this little side nonprofit where we launch things like this that we think will be a positive impact on the urban core, but also are citywide. So we launched that initiative about 5 years ago to grow Charlotte's music scene and economy. So it is still housed within Center City Partners.
Okay. I thought that was the case, but I wanted to be, pretty clear on it. And there's so many great things about that. I know you guys are involved in the Community Music Hang, which is a great event I've been to quite a few of. In fact, I think that's where I met you the first time.
I think it was.
As a matter of fact,
I think
when it was at Jambox.
Yeah, that's right.
That particular time, I think that's when we met. And you're also sponsoring the Love and Life Festival local music stage this year. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that's going to be?
Yeah, absolutely. So that is happening this weekend in Charlotte. This is a major music festival. Headliners are Post Malone, Stevie Nicks, and Noah Kahan. But the organizers are from Charlotte. This is their first year festival. It is a significant financial investment on their part. And we are really thrilled to be able to sponsor the local stage, where they have an entire stage dedicated to acts from the Charlotte area. So I think it's 18 over the 3 days.
Wow.
We'll be performing. I mean, this is in a lineup of around 50 acts. So they didn't have to do this, right? Especially a first-year festival. They didn't have to devote stage time, money, et cetera, to acts that may not sell as many tickets as Stevie Nicks. But they did, and we're grateful for it. And we're super excited to be the the presenting sponsor of that stage, to be able to intro and outro these acts and introduce them to fans that may not be familiar with them, but I guarantee you they will come away fans.
Oh, and you know, I've seen the lineup, and of course I think we've had 2 of the artists from that have been on here. Last one I did was Natalie Carr, having her on the show. But you got Modern Alibi, you know, and groups like this, and these are groups that I see doing it right. They don't overplay, they don't overexpose themselves. They have educated themselves pretty thoroughly on the music industry, in all aspects, from, you know, social media to Spotify playlist and things like that. You've chosen very well for the stage. And it gives people something to aspire to for the coming years.
I give the organizers full credit for that, because they chose the acts. You know, so they had booked the lineup before we even came on as the sponsor. But candidly, we wouldn't have done it if we didn't think it was a good representation of the area.
And some of these people you've used in Shout Charlotte and
absolutely.
And other
they have
events.
played Charlotte Shout. 2 of the acts played Confluence last year.
Okay, yeah.
And without revealing anything, I'm sure that several of these will be playing Confluence this year as well.
There's one more thing that you do as part of Music Everywhere that I don't know if it's undervalued or if the artists here really understand the true value of, is you send out an email. I'm signed up for this email list. Every performer and musician within the Carolinas, I would say if this would be something that could be open to anybody anywhere, because the content you have on it, you do feature local acts, you tell the things that are going on in Charlotte. But as importantly to me, there are so many avenues for music education on there. You'll repost people's newsletters, you know, links to those. And I think one of them's called the Morning Coffee, and which is a great one. And you find all these resources through that, including you could actually listen to the panels of things like South by Southwest and, you know, those kind of videos, which were so educational. And you're hearing from top A&R people and all that, you know, was coming through your email list. I found out about these that way. And of course, you list open mics, you feature a certain performer. You also have a link to a directory where you have all of these performers in a directory where venues can find them. So it'd be another thing for venues to be on the list as well, because, you know, they have their bio that you can see the artists that have quality pictures that have spent time in what they're doing. Mm-hmm. So it's a pretty important a piece of information, I feel. And something I always tell artists, it's hard to get them to do it. And this might be a subject that comes in for Confluence, is the value of an email list. When you are on social media, like they all are, you're just renting your list. Yeah. But when you have an email list, you own your list. And that's a good example of how a list should be done. You know, you're setting an example there. They need to sign up for it. They need to view that content, but also look, how does an email list like this get done? Because if we have our fans at our shows signing up for these, then all of a sudden we've grown our fan base and we have a little more control should something happen with social media. You know, we all remember MySpace. We all remember Periscope. We know what's going on there. So,
well, not all of us remember Periscope. Good job pulling that one out. Yeah. But no, I think it's the difference between followers and fans. And we actually had a panel on that at last year's Confluence conference. But somebody that is in a split-second decision, clicked like or follow to your Instagram feed, that matters, right? That's a follower. But somebody who gets your email each time and reads your email, that's a fan.
Right.
And you are communicating one-to-one with that fan. And you are having a dialogue with that fan, however often you send your newsletter out. In fact, you're right, Terry, the number of artists to whom I have subscribed to their newsletter, and then I never get one.
Right.
Or it rarely comes out. And I know it's hard. We have a million things to do, but we are trying to show with that newsletter, want the career? Right? Like we're trying to add value. That's what we're trying to do. Like we're trying to add value with this newsletter, not just repeat the same things others are repeating, toward our goal of developing the music scene in Charlotte. So we're listing events that build community. We're highlighting links that artists can use right away to grow their careers. We're telling stories about places where you can gather with other music community members. And we have people reach out and say, hey, can you put my show in your newsletter? I'm like, that's not really what it's for. We have other people that do that. And I think artists can do the same thing with their newsletter.
With their own newsletter.
How do you add value to your fans? Maybe it's a special early peek at a release, or a video only for them, or hey, come see me at this private viewing party for my next single.
Go
or whatever
from followers to fans with that.
Exactly.
Well, we got two events we're going to talk about. When we come back, we're going to take a quick break to hear from our sponsors and also a special video before we roll back in. So we'll be right back with Rick Thurmond here in the studio.
They are playing some of the best hockey in the entire American League right now.
They're the team that you don't want to be lined up against. They've really made a case for themselves as a real threat going down the line here.
Here comes a breakaway. Dalby into the zone. High slot shot. He scores! Spencer Knight with the right leg!
I found my routine. Got something I can believe. Rough start, I'll be good. Had thoughts that I really would. I think loud since I can believe in me. We know when it's good. Always gotta find a way. It's alright. We all come down once in a while. With everything that's going on, it can make you wanna run away. So stand up, my friend, and tell me what you got to say.
Welcome back to rBeatz Studio here with Rick Thurmond in the studio. And you've just seen the video of Confluence, the Carolinas' premier music conference. It truly is. And let's talk a bit about that. Coming from the music industry, obviously I spent years in it, and I actually went to Confluence this past year, was very impressed with what you guys had accomplished, and you brought in a combination of guests. You had guests from local, county, and state government. You had people from the music industry. You had Mikey from Ari's Take. I got to give him a special shout out because that's such an incredible, music podcast as well. And you had I remember Friday Jones teaching this amazing seminar that was so detailed and step by step of how to create your electronic press kit. This was real information combined with panels, and it's where I met Petra Center, which we've had on the show. I met her through that conference, and I met some great artists not only in town but from out of town who came to the city to see what we had going on. So tell us more about Confluence.
Yeah, thanks. It was definitely a labor of love. So we put this on last year, and we're bringing it back this year. We intend for it to be an annual event. It's in October. It is a music industry conference. So 2-3 days of panels, workshops, keynote speakers, and we really try to bring in a mix of Charlotte, regional, and national speakers to the table, because one of the goals is to connect the national music industry with the local music scene.
Let them know we're here.
This conference is rooted in the Carolinas. I mean, the URL is confluencecarolinas.com. So we really want that to shine through in what we're doing. It's not designed to be a generic conference, but we want to invite the national industry leaders in to see what we have going on here, not just in Charlotte, but in both Carolinas. And then at night we have a showcase festival. So we go inside.
Spread out.
Yeah, that's, we want to get people inside the local independent venues. That's the backbone of any music scene.
Absolutely.
And we did a lot of research. I won't bore you with all of that, but what we learned was there are a lot of people in the area that identify as live music fans that essentially were only going to the big national acts, which is fine. That's great. I think it's just because they aren't sure how to go to a venue they're not familiar with in a neighborhood they don't usually go to see an act they don't know much about. So how do we break down some of those barriers by making it easy for them to get inside those venues and give artists a chance to showcase their talents, not just for local fans, but for visiting industry to help build those connections.
Yeah, and you did a great job of that. Something else I liked, I'm not sure if you're using the same venue this year, but I love that venue because you had so many great rooms, and then you had just an easy transition into the restaurant area where so many of these people sat and talked. And of course, Tosco, had his people out there playing and entertaining as well. He always has amazing acts as well that he works with. And then you had just different areas where the artists could sit and talk, in between that and get to know each other. And I think that helped a lot with social capital as well.
Yeah, that's what it's about, is building connections. We will be at the Avid Exchange Music Factory again, which is, for those that don't know, an entertainment complex in the heart of Charlotte, multiple music venues and other destinations. And we're also picking up on what you just said. We're building, the one thing we heard feedback was, hey, we want more networking opportunities. So yes, a lot of it happened organically, but we will also be planning and producing some very intentional networking events as well.
And maybe even kicking that off with how to network, because a lot of people, not only do they not know the rules of networking, they don't know how to present, they don't know how to follow up, and it's not common sense. I mean, I didn't know it when I first got into everything. There were people that taught me, and having that knowledge makes you more comfortable, with going into a situation like that. And it was such a great place for that, because you had people from different realms, people that were talking about Bitcoin, and the blockchain. You had people that were talking about booking. You had people that were talking about recording. I even learned of this one vinyl company that was there, that they actually have chips under the label that you can scan, and play the music as well on vinyl, which was a cool new thing that I had not known about. So there was so much to be learned like that you wouldn't even expect to learn. And just like I said, the friendship and collaboration for that. So
well, and you hit upon another key element of it, is that we are trying to design a music conference for where the music industry is going, not necessarily where it's been. I think there are a lot of things that are timeless about being successful in the music industry, but there's a lot that's changing as well.
Very fast.
So we want to bring some of those ideas to the table, to Charlotte, to introduce people to maybe new ways to think about releasing your music, promoting your music, whatever the case may be, but also introduce those people to each other. Because as you mentioned earlier, there are so many people doing some of this, even in Charlotte, that don't know each other, that didn't know that they were here. And, that we had 4 or 5 startup founders on panels that had some connection to the Charlotte area, some that did not. So allowing them to talk to each other as well. That's how deals get done. That's how partnerships get made.
And that's how people get seen, because you're using different fan bases. When you have a fan base and somebody else has a fan base, and you're kind of cross collateralizing, and you see a lot of that on a national scene, where an artist will be on another artist, maybe in their video or a guest spot on the song, and all of a sudden they've opened their Spotify audiences, or they've opened their YouTube audiences, and it's a lot faster growth than just trying to build that whole thing yourself. And even, in that, it's not just collaborations with other musicians, but it's collaborations with poets, it's collaborations with visual artists, and which, your event, Charlotte Shout, that's a great example, because you have that stuff all over the city, where you have performers, but you have these amazing displays that people come and they take so many pictures of, whether it's I've seen everything from like these little egg sculptures,
Yeah, we had 13 of these giant eggs in a park. This is Charlotte Shout, of course, that we're talking about, 17-day arts and culture festival in Uptown. And each egg was designed and decorated by a different artist, and each one itself was a pretty amazing piece. And it also became a pretty popular Instagram backdrop. One
of my favorite things to send people, because they had not seen it in their city, but the DJ booth that was in a pirate ship, right, between the Mint and the Beckler. I was sending that to everybody, and they were like, "What kind of crazy party are you at?" And I was like, "This is a festival. This is what we have in the city." And then you had concerts as well.
And the funny thing is that pirate ship is actually a float in the parade.
Oh.
So we had it designed and built by an artist this year for the parade, and then we thought, this thing is so amazing, how else can we use it? And so we installed it right on this beautiful sort of alleyway-like street between 2 art museums, has a perfect spot for a DJ booth up top. We hired mermaids and pirates to dance around. And then right next to it was this giant art installation called Sonic Runway that mimics sound waves, but you can run
I
through
walked
it.
that many
And the
times
lights
with Thurmond.
react to the music. So it became this, especially as soon as it got dark, it became like a dance party every night. It was really cool.
Yeah, and it introduces you to new venues too, because I had never heard of the Piano Drome before that. And, you know, I've been to that, of course, with those events. But there's this, it's like a room in the round, kind of like an amphitheater indoors in a church, but it's made out of piano parts, you know, like broken up grand pianos and things like that to build something unique to our city that nobody would have known had you not had that. And, you know, of course, other Instagram moments as well with that. Well, it's been such a great privilege to sit here with you, because I've known you a little while now and so impressed with your work, but to actually be able to sit down and be able to let people know that this is such a deep story of what is happening in the city. Imagine what this is going to be 5 years from now, or 3 years from now, or even 2 years from now, because of the work that's being put forth. So thank you very much for what you and Charlotte Center City Partners, Music Everywhere, are doing. You're making this just so much better of a place to live. Even though it's an already incredible city, now it's a city where you just have something going on all the time that's just great to be a part of. So thank you very much.
Oh, Terry, thank you. Thank you for those kind words, and thank you so much for having me. It's been a privilege.
And just always let us know when you have something to promote or something going on.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. You've been listening to rBeatz.com with our special guest, Rick Thurmond, who's the Chief Marketing Officer, again, for Charlotte Center City Partners. And we will see you next time. Thanks for tuning in. Much love.